The project I'm going to show you today is a second grade project. It is called Illusion of Depth, which that sounds like a fairly complicated topic for second grade, but it's just a good thing for them to learn, and they'll get it. It's fine. So this is one of the samples for this one, and what they're going to do is they're going to learn about the different things in a picture or painting that make things look further or closer to the viewer. So even though it's on a flat piece of paper, it still has three-dimensional qualities. So how these flowers in the front, because they're bigger, they look closer to the viewer. And so there's a couple things I have that can help the students with this. And one is this worksheet that you can give them. It explains 3 of the techniques that artists can use to give the viewer the illusion of three-dimensional space. So the first one is when something is overlapping something else, it looks closer. When something is larger, it looks closer. And then the other one is the higher it is on the paper, the further it appears to be. So those are the 3 techniques that they're going to work with today. And then the other thing that's helpful in this one is this will work. There's other things similar. It's just easy things for them to draw because they're going to choose one object, whatever they choose, and it doesn't have to be one of these, and they're going to draw it over and over again. So it could be something as easy as a tree, if they want to do an animal, whatever. So this kind of gets their mind jogging of things that would be simple enough for them to draw again and again. So again, these are just ideas. They don't have to do any of them, but it might help them think of some things that they can draw again and again without too much difficulty. The first thing that they're going to need is a piece of paper or cardstock. They are going to be using watercolors on it, so I would recommend something heavier than just a regular printer paper. Construction paper would be fine. Cardstock is good. It's up to you. So I just have a piece of cardstock here, and just real quick, I'll show you. So in this one I did flowers, in this one I did sheep, and as you can see there's a really simple sheep. So they want to choose something not difficult to draw, that they can just draw in a few steps. The first thing that you're going to have them draw is a horizon line, and if they don't know what that is, you can just explain to them. It's pretty much where the sky meets the ground. And this line can be straight across, it can be curvy, that would mean it's more of like a hill, whatever they want to do. So I'm just going to do just a little line there. And then the next thing they need to do is they need to decide what object they're going to draw again and again. Like I said, it could be anything. It could be as simple as a triangle tree, or it could be an animal, really whatever they choose. And based on what they choose, it will be a different type of landscape. So if they chose a snowman, it would be winter. If they chose a cactus, it would be the desert. So like I said, whatever they want to choose. So I'm actually going to do a cactus. You want them to use those 3 techniques to create the illusion of depth. So you want them to make sure to use each of them one time. So I would remember to use overlapping once, remind them to use relative size once, and remind them to use placement at least once. And if they have that paper reminding which is which, they'll be able to do it without a lot of problem. So I'm going to do a cactus. So because this cactus it's going to be larger, which gives it the impression that it's closer. And it's also at the bottom of the paper, which gives you the impression that it's closer. So that's my first cactus. Like I said, because they're going to be drawing it multiple times, you really want them to choose something that is easy to draw and it doesn't take too much time. If it's super detailed, they'll have a hard time drawing it again and again. So I'm going to do another cactus, and I'm first going to use the idea of overlapping. So I'm going to do a cactus that's behind this one. And because it's behind, it's going to appear further away. So I've used overlapping here, and the next thing I want to use is relative size. So things that are further away are going to be smaller. So for example, if I draw something up here at the top of the hill, this cactus is going to be smaller. They'll start to figure out that the further up the paper it is, the smaller they'll draw it, because that means it's further away. So they can experiment with it, and they're using pencils, so they'll get the idea. So now I've drawn all the cacti, and as you can see, I've used the 3 techniques. So overlapping, so a couple times, the one that's in, you can tell which one's in front because it overlaps the other. Relative size, the larger ones appear closer to the viewer, and then also placement. So the further down on the paper they are, the closer they appear. So like I said, it's a little bit of a tricky concept, but I think that they'll get it for the most part. Some will get it more than others. And even if they don't totally grasp all 3 techniques, that's fine. Just have them try. And I would suggest to them, I think I have 10 cacti here. I would suggest to have them, draw 8 to 10 of their object. So again, that's why you want it to be something simple. So after they're done drawing their object multiple times, they can add some details. So the next step that they're gonna do is they're going to trace these lines with a crayon. Now you can skip this step and have them just go straight to watercolor. Sometimes the watercolor tends to dull the pencil and you won't see the details as much. It's up to you and how much time you have. I'm just gonna quickly outline the lines in crayon. And again, I like to use the crayon over a Sharpie or something because it gives you, because the watercolors resist that crayon. And you can see here, I outlined just the main outlines and the details I left in pencil. It's really up to you and how much time they have. Like this one, I did do all the outlines in crayon. Again, you could just go straight to watercolor if you want. They tend to write pretty hard with their pencils, so it doesn't usually end up being a problem that they wouldn't be able to see the pencil line. Okay, so next you're gonna move to watercolor. So I'm gonna show you some of my favorite watercolor tricks. So this is actually a dollar store dog dish. As you can see, I have water in this side, and in this side, I just have a sponge. And what this lets them do is when they're working with their watercolor, they can dip in the water here and get the color that they need. And then when they're ready to switch colors, they can clean out their brush and they can dry it off in the sponge. So you don't have to worry about paper towels. And the great thing about these dog dishes is they're really hard to tip over. They're really sturdy. And like I said, just at the dollar store. So it's a great tool for when you're watercoloring with especially the younger grades. The other thing I like to do with the kids is when we use watercolor, I like to remind them about not mixing the colors in the watercolor tray. So reminding them to use the color and rinse off their brush. And if you want, I often offer an incentive. If they bring me back the tray clean, looking nice and clean like this, then I'll give them a sticker or I'll give them, whatever, and it totally works. And they end up with a nice clean tray that you don't have to rinse out. And also their finished product ends up looking so much better because their colors aren't all mixed up and muddled. So it is something that works, and if you want to try it, it might work. So as you can see, when I'm watercoloring, my pencil lines show up just fine. So it's totally up to you if you want to have them take the time to do the crayon outline. I would just remind them, if you're not going to do the crayon outline, to make sure their pencil lines are dark enough. Here is my finished second grade project for Illusion of Depth. Again, they'll just learn about how to place things on their paper to create the illusion of 3 dimensions on their flat paper.